I think maybe the bench is maybe not quite done. But for my purposes today, I'm done. And that's going to have to be enough for that to go. Wow, I have really enjoyed trying this for the first time. And I think it's turning out that it's going to work. Now, I'll probably see lots of ways I could get better at it, but here is the video of the process of trying to finish and weather protect the rustic live edge maple bench with walnut legs. How many times have I said that now? Well, I'm kind of fascinated by this because this is all stuff that is kind of first time for me, but also it's stuff that was taken from my property, my mom's property, that otherwise just would have been trash, or thrown into a fire or something, and I get to make something out of it. So please let me know what you think. I'd love to have your thoughts and comments, especially if you have good ideas about improving the weather hardiness of the seal on it. I've got one coat of boiled linseed oil on it at this point. Tried to really let it soak in, and I'm going to see about maybe doing another round or two of that, but maybe there's something better to put on it. Love to know what you think. Thanks very much for watching. It's going to be a lot of background noise here, but I wanted to show where things stand with the first attempt at a live edge mortise and tenon cut bench. And I used CA glue to try to lock in the legs. They're very solid right now. I don't know how well that might hold up, but I also want to show that I tried to fill in a few spots with some CA glue. For example, in these splits and in this big one here towards the end, but it started to drip a bit, so I just kind of tried to plug these side with some scrap cardboard, and then when it dried I tore that off. So there needs to be quite a bit of sanding still, but so I'm going to try to clean this top up, and then I've got a grinder with a sanding flap disc on it to try and get the bark off the legs. And then we're going to see eventually about some linseed oil as a protectant all the way around. I'm going to do some more sanding on this end because there's quite a little ridge here. Actually, there are a couple of them that I want to work down. Don't know about trying to plug any of these. I've got some epoxy. I may try to experiment a little bit with some epoxy to even out these tenon holes. That's, yeah, it'd probably be good practice with that, so I know how that works a little bit. But for now, I've got a grinder that I picked up cheap at Harbor Freight a few weeks back, and I'm going to dedicate it, I think, to these flap sanders and see if I can't do some rough work on the legs and maybe the sides, and then start running back through 80 to 220 grit sandpaper in order to get this thing polished up. Yeah, let's it's been fun so far. I think it's going to be fun to finish it too. I did not realize that these flap discs could actually be worn out that quickly. Now, it's probable that I can clean some of this bark gunk out of it, but it really did, the performance really degraded after about the third leg. Really interesting. Uh, and as was probably obvious from the what was the time lapse and the last part of the video, I really should have put on a mask. Next time, I promise. Well, that of course was incredibly messy, dusty, but I think it turned out pretty well. I tell you, I'd love if anybody would put in the comments what you think here. I really kind of lean towards just leaving the bark on the legs, and I think that a spray lacquer or maybe some kind of polyurethane finish might bind the bark and keep it on there, but I don't know that for sure, and I don't know about the look. So anybody would love to have your thoughts. If you were going to get one of these benches, kind of a rustic, rough cut, live edge kind of bench, would you prefer to have the bark on the bottom of the log and on the legs, or do you like the idea of it being clean and bare? And I will sand this up a little more smooth than this, but that's the first time really using the flap sander on the grinding disc, and it was okay. Yeah, what do you think? Please let me know in the comments, and what other thoughts you might have. I'd love to hear about that as well. The next picture should be all three of the legs cleaned up. I think I can still get this done this evening. I think I am going to do one with the bark still on though, because I kind of like it. Yeah, please let me know what you think. It is amazing how much circumference is taken off with the bark. I think I like the bark better in a way. Well, I know I liked it better in a way, but I think it's going to seal up better without it, and it's a more uniform look, I suppose. Pretty happy with how it turned out as a first try. It's not perfect, far from it, but I am going to try to use some epoxy to fill in the gaps here and here, and maybe around the bottoms of the legs once the top dries, to really try and set the wood. Now, I'll try to do better with the next set, but I do want to enjoy how this one turned out as well, and very interested in what you might think. Would really be glad for any comments. Please like and subscribe while you're at it. That'd be awesome. Blessed and grateful. Time to take a seat. Thanks. How many lessons can I learn on one project? I think my first try at epoxy is ugly, but it's okay. I gotta learn somehow, sometime, somewhere. I think I've got a little bit of a rise here that will be able to be sanded down. This one is a little low, and the third one is a little low. I don't know if this will show it well or not. I can't really see the level too well, but that is pretty much filled in. I don't have the courage right this minute to look underneath and see if anything is leaking through, but I really do think the CA glue that I used initially probably filled in gaps. There was some leaking with that, and I think that the gaps have been filled in. So far, I'm not seeing any loss of level. This one, yeah, I'm probably going to want some more fill there and in the other one, but I just had this Gorilla Glue 5-minute that I have had for a long time, and I thought, well, I'm just going to use this up, and then I've got another 5-minute. If it looks like I need more, I will maybe set up another session after it's had a chance to harden, probably for a couple days. Looking forward to getting some finer sanding work done. I got from 40 to 80, and we'll see how the epoxy does. I may be able to start with 100 grit to start evening this out, and I'd like to go to 220, I think. So maybe 320? 240 maybe was what the other one I have. So either 240 or 320, we'll see. Just as practice, it doesn't have to be that fine, but I just kind of want to practice with it. I think I did get this ragged edge pretty close to, not even, but smooth. I may do a little more work on that. I'm also considering epoxy in this split. Have to set up some tape or something as a block there and maybe try to fill that in. I don't know if it'd make much difference, but that's kind of where my thinking is at this point. All right, well, I am very glad that I've gotten to this stage on this bench, and looking forward to seeing how it comes out. Very interesting that have a maple bench with walnut legs. Thanks for watching. Extremely solid. This is overnight, about 10 hours, I think, since it was done. And I think it needs to cure a little bit longer, but I'll be able to sand that down pretty shortly, and no leaks that I can see. That's very good. So these legs really should be set well. Yeah, it's got a little dip to it, and it should be great. All right, that was a great experiment. In terms of me learning something is what I'm saying. Very good. It's been about 3 or 4 days, and the epoxy has definitely set up good and solid. Didn't worry about bubbles, trying to get a flame over it or anything to get the bubbles out. I was just trying to do it quick and set it up so that I could then sand it down and try to get this ready for, I think, just the boiled linseed oil treatment. And I'm not going to take time to show a lot of sanding, a lot more sanding, but here is the before. Let's see what it looks like after. That's where we're at with an 80 grit. Kind of probably hard to see the numbering there. With 80 grit, that is nice and even except for the low spots. It's got a low spot in it. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm actually kind of fascinated by the rustic. Putting the ustic in rustic here, in a way. All right, now I want to go at least to 100 grit, and then maybe eventually a 220. Let's take it to the next level. Going to start next with a 120. Then I found a 180 also. That may be as high as it needs to go, but some of the really nice graining is coming out of this maple, so I'm not afraid to take it a little higher grit if it's going to bring out a nicer look. So again, not going to bore you with sanding video, but let's see what it looks like after this. And this might give a sense of the surface condition. It's pretty smooth, but not as much as it could be, I'm sure. Yeah, this will be a good spot to come back to look. I'm interested to see if this glasses up the epoxy too, and if the linseed oil is going to bring out a gloss to the epoxy. I'm not sure about that. Yeah, this is some of the graining that I think is really, really nice. I'd like to see if that pops even more with some finer grit. This whole project is very experimental. I started with some CA glue to try to fill in some of these gaps, and it took a long time to dry, so I didn't even know if this was the right kind to use the activator with, but I hit it with some activator, and in fact, you see that crystallizing there, it did make it work. Now, I think at this point I've still got some little depressions here, here as well. I'm going to try a little bit more after I clean it out a bit, and then I'm going to flip this thing over and get some more work done on the legs. I've started on the fronts, but I've left at least one of them untouched so that I can show that process. The other thing I'm trying to do is really get the end smoothed out so that it will take the linseed well. But I'm probably going to try to work in this crack also. Yeah. I could say, oh, I wish it wasn't taking this long, but actually I need to learn this stuff and kind of get comfortable with using the equipment and the chemicals and stuff, and so it's okay. But well, I do really love how this maple has this marbling in it. I'm not sure that I'm showing it too well. Let's see. Yeah, man, isn't that grain pretty? So, and that's with the 180, 120, I think. This is the 120 grit. And we're going to get 180 and then 220. And I think it's really going to pop that grain out. Really a nice smooth surface at this point, but the other side and the legs definitely need some work. So let's do that. So here's what I'm working with on the legs. And, you know, it's kind of been sanded down, but then every once in a while there's a kind of a rough patch. It's actually almost some of that inner bark I didn't quite get off yet. I'm going to really try to clean these up, get them very smooth so that try to get it sealed well. The light's not good for that one. I've done a bit of work on these legs. Still want to do some more on the body of the bench itself. And as I said, I think I'm going to try to fill at least this crack with the CA, and maybe one at the end. There's one there that probably would be good to seal. Maybe that one too. But yeah, at some point it's supposed to be a little rough, so I don't necessarily need to get it perfectly smooth. But let's see how it goes. I am fast approaching deadline here to get a video done and posted by 9 o'clock tonight. Here is what I've gotten to. Now, very smooth. This ended up being 180. Very smooth in a lot of places, but for every totally smoothed out spot, there might be a little gouge left. When I was clearing the bark off these, I'd already put them in the thing, and so there are some gouges that, let's just say that it's to leave a little bit of the rustic flair. Now this is obviously the bottom of the bench, but it has gotten very smooth. Now, somebody that's experienced with sanding might note that I've not gotten it down completely smooth. So it's very smooth to the touch, but there are obvious places where it's not sanded completely smooth. I'm gonna mess it up if I'm not careful. Like here, there's a little bit of color change because that's not been caught by the sander completely. I did do some CA glue in this crack and in this one, and I'm just going to call that a benefit. I don't know though, when I used the activator, I'm learning a lot here. I used the activator and it left kind of a water stain, and that was not sanding out, so it got fairly deep in the grain. So it'll be interesting to see what the linseed oil does for this. So now I want to get kind of a before picture of before the linseed, and let's turn it over and see the top, which got a little more sanding. And no way to really communicate the smoothness, but I am going to go ahead and get the 240 and run it across the top a little bit, just because I like the way this grain is beginning to pop. All right. Is that a little whale face there? Not intentional if it is. Okay. Well, it's just a lot of sanding, but that's not terrible. I know people hate it, but I'm kind of enjoying the process. I'm kind of nervous about this. I've worked on this thing a long time, but at some point you got to try to seal it from the weather because it's supposed to be an outside thing. So I'm going to try this linseed oil. It'd be better if I had linseed oil with beeswax. And this is, man, the best example of this I know of is Jesper Makes when he did his outdoor furniture, and he shishugi bond, I think it's poplar, and used a combination of, I think, boiled linseed oil and honey comb, beeswax, and maybe some mineral spirits. But anyway, yeah, and it just turned out so great, and it doesn't get any weather in it. So I am not going to try to do that with this. I'm not going to shishugi bond the maple and the walnut. When I get some poplar or some pine and I do this, I probably will. But it's time to do it, and I really want to see how it turns out. I'm going to start with the legs, although there'll be some drip down onto the bottom side. I'm going to start with the legs and then do the body of the bench, the underside, before I do the top, because I just want to see how it goes. I'm tempted to wait, but I really want to see how it goes. So now please enjoy a little bit of time lapse. There is a bit more contrast in the color, but it's not terribly dramatic. I'm going to try to get down in the crevices a little bit more to try and let it soak in some. I'm not sure I'm doing a great job, but it's kind of just do it and we'll see what we learn in the process. Might be a good idea to let the bottom dry before turning it over and doing the other side, but I'm a little impatient today, I think, as I am oftentimes. So let's just really try to get this to soak in. I wondered if the linseed oil would cause the epoxy to be a little more clear instead of frosted at the top, and it looks like it had a bit of that effect. I'm gonna think about a second coat. Maybe tomorrow or in a couple days. It's a little bit humid right now, so it'd be a good idea to let it set. I'm going to finish this. Didn't get this leg very well. Make sure I get all the way around. Oh yeah, that grain really comes out nicely down here on this end with the marbling or whatever it is that maple does. Really nice. All right, I think we can set it up to let it dry now, and then maybe try having it out in a rain in a few days and see if it beads up. I'm quite happy with it. Let's call that good for now. Time to start editing. Hey, I'm blessed and grateful for the chance to practice, to have some materials that I think are really excellent, that are also free, and I'm looking forward to seeing how all this comes out. I think the CA glue did lock up some of the crevices. All right, that is a maple live edge bench with mortise and tenon of walnut legs. Thanks for watching.